Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really going deep on MrBeast, Jimmy Donaldson.
Yeah.
The biggest YouTuber out there, but also this like major business figure now.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got this really detailed interview transcript, which is our main source here. And he just lays it all out. Life, YouTube, the businesses, how he thinks. It's fascinating stuff.
Right. Everyone knows the name, the crazy videos, the giveaways. But what we want to do here, our mission for you listening, is to kind of peel back the layers.
Exactly. Understand what's really driving him, what makes him tick, and see if there are lessons there, things anyone trying to do something ambitious could maybe use.
Yeah, kind of a shortcut to understanding the engine behind the spectacle, but also the real world stuff he's doing. It's not all fun and games, apparently. There are some surprising bits in his story.
Definitely. So let's just jump in. The interview really kicks off talking about his early years and this incredible focus he had.
Incredible is the word. Like from 11 years old. 11. He's saying he's going to be a YouTuber and he'll die trying.
It's intense. He calls himself the most competitive, stubborn person you'll ever meet. And that drive, that singular focus was there right from the start.
But it wasn't always seen that way, was it? He talks about feeling like a freak in school.
Right. Because all his energy, all his thoughts were just YouTube building things. Not typical high school stuff.
He even tried, didn't he? Said he forced himself to watch South Park to try and fit in.
Yeah, but it just didn't click for him. His mind was just like wired differently, wired for creating and figuring things out online.
And people notice. He mentioned a teacher thought he might be mute.
Yeah, because he just wasn't engaging in the usual way. He was quiet in his own world, thinking about videos.
It really highlights that thing, when you're not successful yet, that kind of intense focus can look weird.
Yeah.
Lunatic even, as he put it.
But then you make it big, and suddenly it's admirable. It's genius.
Right. It's the same trait, just perceived differently based on the outcome.
And he makes a great point. If you feel like you're the problem, maybe it's just the environment you're in. You need to find your people, your fellow lunatics, as he joked.
Finding that tribe seems key. So that early drive, that stubbornness, where did that come from? Family seems like a big piece.
Oh, huge. He talks about his family going bankrupt when he was 11.
Yeah.
That really stuck with him.
Yeah, creating this really strong desire to, take care of his mom, make sure she was okay.
Exactly. So that initial YouTube obsession wasn't just, hey, I want to be famous. It was tied to something really fundamental, like helping his family.
Which makes his mom's initial reaction totally understandable, right?
Yeah.
She's worried.
Of course. She saw him glued to the computer, not doing homework, and they'd just gone through this financial hardship. She was crying, begging him to focus on school.
He admits he was, a defiant teenager about it.
Yeah, classic clash. She said it felt like they were speaking different languages.
Yeah.
She wanted stability, the traditional path. He was obsessed with this new, unproven thing.
But look how that turned out. Their relationship now. He supports her, bought her a second house. It's quite the turnaround.
It really is, and it shows how that initial motivation has kind of blossomed. It wasn't just about money then, and it's definitely not just about money now.
Right. He gets frustrated when people oversimplify it.
Yeah, he talks about the joy of just making stuff, solving hard problems, building a community, and being able to provide for family. It's multifaceted.
Which brings us back to that core thing, the obsession. His superpower, maybe?
He definitely frames it that way now, that ability to just obsess endlessly. Think about one thing over and over.
Those 18-hour Skype calls back in the day, just dissecting YouTube.
Insane focus, just trying to crack the code. It's not something most people can sustain. Have you, ever felt that kind of singular drive about something?
Maybe not quite 18-hour Skype call level. But yeah, you get glimpses. And for him, it wasn't just YouTube content forever.
No, that's what's interesting. That same intensity, that obsession, he found it again in entrepreneurship, building Feastables, for example.
He said he gets the same high from figuring out complex business challenges.
Right. Solving those hard, consistent problems. It's like he took that YouTube problem-solving muscle and applied it to, chocolate, an industry he knew nothing about initially.
But it hasn't all been smooth sailing. He's faced some serious health stuff, too.
Yeah, the Crohn's disease diagnosis at 15, that sounds like it was incredibly rough.
He lost a lot of weight, constant pain, fatigue. Described it as living life in hard mode.
Which must be incredibly difficult when you're trying to manage these huge productions he does. Fatigue, weakened immune system.
And it's unpredictable, right? Flares can happen anytime, which adds another layer of stress, especially during filming.
Definitely. He's pretty open about the mental toll of dealing with a chronic illness like that,
Yeah.
and also his frustration that the treatments aren't, better. He wants a real solution.
And then there is the ADHD diagnosis, too.
Right. And his take on that is really interesting. He doesn't see it as a disorder, really.
More like his superpower.
Exactly. That tendency to hyperfocus, to obsess. He sees it as the engine behind his success. It kind of makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What things about ourselves might we see as flaws that could actually be strengths in the right context?
That's a great point. So if we were trying to boil down his approach, like MrBeast's rules for success, what would they be based on this interview?
Well, a few things really jump out. One, being super coachable, always learning.
Okay.
Two, thinking long-term about the people he works with. It's a career, not just a job. He invests in them.
Makes sense. And the obsession, obviously, being all in.
That's non-negotiable, it seems. Also, surrounding yourself with the right people, being really protective of who influences you. He even studies other fast-growing companies.
Learning from others? Smart?
Yeah. And then extreme ownership.
Yeah.
Taking responsibility, believing pretty much nothing's impossible if physics allows it and you put in the time.
That sounds like him.
Oh, and the purple cow idea. You gotta be remarkable, do something unexpected to stand out, which, his videos definitely qualify.
Absolutely. So on the other side, what does he hate seeing in people he works with?
Mediocrity seems to be the big one. He talks about C players dragging down the energy of the whole team.
Right. That makes sense. You want great people working with other great people.
Exactly. He even mentioned that finding that people usually leave jobs because of their colleagues, maybe even more than money.
Interesting. Now, given how massive he is online, the criticism must be intense. How does he handle that?
He says he gets thousands of hate messages, death threats even. It's kind of mind-boggling.
Wow. So how do you not let that just crush you?
He basically had to develop his own internal rules, his own compass for what's right, and not let the internet dictate everything. He gets that even if only like 0.1% of people hate you, at his scale, that's still a lot of negativity.
Yeah, the scale amplifies everything.
But fundamentally, he seems to believe that, a world where he's trying to help people and do cool stuff is just better, more fun, despite the haters.
Still, he admits it takes a toll.
Well, yeah, he's very honest about being miserable a lot of times, having mental breakdowns, although maybe less extreme now.
It's like he sees that difficulty as part of the process.
Almost like a barrier to entry. He thinks the reason so few people achieve what he has is because it's so incredibly difficult and uncomfortable. He even frames those tough moments as chances to build a bigger advantage.
That's quite a mindset. What about his actual life? Work-life balance seems unlikely.
Pretty much non-existent, based on his description. He gave an example of a week, constant travel, filming, intense pressure.
Sleep, exercise.
A constant struggle, he admits. Hard to prioritize when the work demands are that relentless. It shows the kind of sacrifices involved.
But his fiancée, Tia, seems like a really positive force.
Definitely. He calls their relationship frictionless. They share interests. She's super supportive and, crucially, willing to align her life with his crazy schedule.
That seems essential.
Yeah. And he also mentioned something really thoughtful about kids.
Oh, yeah.
Wanting to wait until he can actually be there, be a present dad. He knows his current pace wouldn't allow for that. Shows a level of self-awareness.
Okay, let's pivot to the businesses, because it's way beyond YouTube now.
Oh, massively. Feastables, the snack company, is doing 9 figures in revenue. That's huge.
9 figures? Wow. And he confirmed the billionaire thing? Sort of?
Yeah, on paper, as he put it. But he stressed that almost all of it gets plowed right back into the businesses. Growing things.
So his view on money isn't about hoarding it.
Not at all. He sees it purely as fuel. Fuel to grow, fuel to make a bigger impact, fuel to tackle big problems. It's about the legacy, not the personal bank account.
Which leads us straight into Feastables and the whole ethical sourcing mission. This feels really important.
It is. And it's pretty shocking stuff he uncovered. He talks about the statistic 1.5 million children involved in child labor on cocoa farms, mostly in West Africa.
1.5 million? That's staggering.
It clearly hit him hard. And it became like a core reason why Feastables exists. He was genuinely frustrated with the big chocolate companies, feeling like they weren't doing enough or were just making excuses.
So for Feastables, ethical sourcing isn't just marketing fluff.
No, it's fundamental. His goal is to get Feastables to $1 billion in revenue. partly to prove that you can run a massive chocolate business ethically, that it is possible at scale.
That's a bold goal.
It is. He has this long-term vision of actually fighting child labor in the industry, maybe even setting up his own standard. His bottom line is simple. I don't want to get rich on the back of little kids.
You can't argue with that.
And that's why he says he won't sell Feastables. He's afraid a new owner would compromise on the ethics to boost profits.
He's really in the weeds with it too, isn't he?
Totally. Obsessed with the details. Visiting Walmarts himself to see why bars were breaking. Putting GoPros in stores, can you imagine?
Hidden cameras to check on chocolate bars, that's dedication.
And sending people to clean up broken bars at his own cost. It's just miles away from a typical celebrity slapping their name on a product. He's building it deeply.
Yeah, that's a whole different level of commitment. Okay, what about Beast Games? That was another massive undertaking.
Huge. Biggest sets, biggest prize, most contestants, like 50 Guinness World Records broken. Just epic scale.
He said he felt playfully sad it was over.
Yeah, but it came at a massive personal cost. He funded it himself.
How much?
Tens of millions of dollars. He personally lost tens of millions on it.
Whoa. Why take that risk?
His motivation, he said, was to prove a point. To show that YouTubers, creators, could make hit shows for big streaming platforms like Amazon, to open doors for other creators.
That's a huge gamble for the community.
It really is. And it worked, in a sense. It was Amazon's biggest unscripted show ever, apparently. Evergreen content. But still a massive financial hit for him personally.
What does that tell us about him?
It speaks volumes about his willingness to bet on himself and his vision, and also his focus on learning. He talks about doing detailed after-action reports on videos, figuring out what worked, what didn't.
So failure isn't fatal, it's data.
Exactly. He even mentioned a time his friend Tyler made a multi-million-dollar mistake,
Yeah.
but he saw it as a learning cost. As long as failure comes from taking calculated risks or trying something new,
Yeah.
not from laziness, it's acceptable, even necessary.
Always experimenting, always improving. So looking ahead, what's next for him? What are the hopes?
Well, continued growth, obviously. YouTube channels, Feastables, hitting that goal of helping 1 million kids escape child labor. That's a big one. Maybe more Beast Games in some form. Potential new businesses.
And personally,
Still that long-term goal of having kids, but only when he feels he can slow down enough to be a truly present father.
when you look back at everything we've discussed, his whole journey, any final reflections?
It's interesting he talked about seeing old pictures of himself and feeling like he was just this confused child who didn't fit in. And also just real gratitude for his mom, how they got through those early conflicts and how much her support means now. It kind of grounds the whole larger-than-life persona, you know?
Yeah, it brings it back to the human element. Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. For everyone listening, what are the big takeaways from this deep dive into MrBeast?
I think a few things really stand out. First, just the raw power of that unwavering focus, that obsession when it's channeled.
Right.
Then the importance of purpose beyond just making money. That ethical drive with Feastables is a huge part of the story now.
Yeah, the why behind it all.
Also resilience.
Yeah,
Dealing with Crohn's, dealing with the hate, the pressure. It takes incredible resilience.
definitely. And the constant push to innovate, to get better, to not be afraid of big risks or failures.
And maybe just the willingness to carve your own path, even when it looks completely different from everyone else's.
So for you listening, the learner, maybe think about your own passions. Where do you have that intense focus? Could that thing that feels maybe a bit unhealthy or obsessive actually be your superpower?
Yeah, what's that impossible thing people tell you can't be done? MrBeast's story is, if nothing else, a testament to ignoring those limits and just going for it, putting in the work, solving the problem.
It's a really compelling perspective shift.
It really is.
Yeah.
Maybe consider those areas where you hold back because you're afraid of being too much or too focused. His journey suggests that might be exactly where your biggest potential lies. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.